Thank you once again, everyone. So it is 7:03, 7:04, and I will call the meeting to order then. Just to begin, I'll say a few words of introduction for myself, because many of you will recognize that I am not the person you typically see up here in the seat of the Superintendent of Special Education. My name is Ted Byers. I am a former retired employee from the Peel District School Board. In fact, I used to be Superintendent of Special Education for a number of years, but that was a number of years ago, and I did retire. However, periodically, I get a call from friends such as the Associate Director sitting here to say, can I come and fill in? And indeed, the regular Superintendent, Claudine Scucato, is off for a couple of weeks. And it's my pleasure to return, and certainly return to this room where I had the pleasure of attending many SEAC meetings. So thank you very much. And also thank you very much to the committee for your ongoing work in support of community and students. The work is invaluable, as Jasmine would have said at the beginning of the session earlier this evening. So thank you once again. Because this is the first meeting, the organizational meeting for SEAC, we begin by electing a chair and a vice chair. So I'll conduct the election for the chair process. And once the chair is elected, I will invite that person to come up and sit here. And then you'll be pleased that I will stop talking. So let's move then to that election of the chair. We'll now open for nominations for the chair of this committee. Please just raise your hand if you wish to nominate someone. Yourself, yes.
I'd like to nominate Leanne Mallett for the position of chair.
Thank you. And Leanne, are you agreeable to accept this nomination?
Sure.
So are there any other nominations for chair?
Shouldn't there be a seconder just for process? I could be that seconder if need be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, are there any other nominations for chair? The awkward moment where we wait. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that the nominations for chair be closed. Would someone like to move that? Jennifer, someone second that motion. Barb, thank you. All in favor, just raise your hands. Thank you. So nominations are closed. We do have a motion from to appoint Leanne Mallett, correct? As chair of the Special Education Committee, and congratulations. I therefore declare that you are acclaimed as chair of the committee.
Welcome.
Thank you, Leanne. I invite you to come up and sit in
Oh,
this.
no, I didn't realize I had to do that
Yes.
tonight.
Yeah. It's your meeting now.
And this is too small a font to be used with the Robert's Rule of Order cheat sheet. I'm gonna need Ted, are you gonna help me?
I am.
Take the
Name.
Pardon me?
The name.
Oh, yes, mine. I'm gonna leave the snack.
No, please take it home.
Oh, no, and now it's falling apart.
Okay.
I was gonna have to provide triage.
Sitting right beside you.
That's Robert's Rules of Order.
So we'll just take a moment here.
I'm just thank you so much.
Thank you. So this is-
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's a script. You used it very natural.
So.
Are you natural? Okay. So we're right there.
Yeah.
And then I have to, how to turn it. It's just really cool. But here I am. I'm Leanne Mallett. I'm the executive director of the Learning Disabilities Association of Peel Region, and I'm now the SEAC chair, and I'm going to use this handy script that has generously given me, because I have not done Robert Rules of Order for quite some time. So the section B of this agenda item, we're electing a vice chair. So we've now open nominations. So you'd have to raise your hand if you wish to put forward a nomination. And you can also nominate yourself. It's fine.
I'd like to nominate Jennifer Knight.
I'll say,
And Jennifer, are you happy to accept that nomination?
sure.
And now we're going to do the awkward
Yes.
silence.
Yes, vice chair.
Are there any other people who would like to stand for vice chair? Trust.
I think it's a bit.
Okay, so the motions for nominations are now closed and we have, we need someone to move that. This is gonna be, why don't we have Barb move it and then just a second. All in favor of that motion? So, and then we say congratulations. Congratulations, Jen, you are now vice chair. Usually that's first, right?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, but we're switching.
Yeah. Sorry.
So now we're at the acknowledgement of the traditional territory. And of course, for item 3, the acknowledgement of the traditional territory, we will review the video of the acknowledgement of traditional lands.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
I didn't understand that.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're moving on to the approval of the agenda. So we would like to have a motion that the Special Education Advisory Committee approves the agenda of December 17th, 2024. If you could have someone to move that. And seconded by, I don't know everybody's name. So
Trustee Benjamin.
Trustee Benjamin. So is there any discussion of the agenda? Or is it accepted as presented? So all in favor? Okay, great. We have approved the agenda. And then number 5, any declarations of conflict of interest. Is there anyone who has a conflict of interest that they want to declare? And so we note that there's no conflicts of interest. And now we're on to the approval of the minutes. Thank you for doing this. Did you do this?
I did.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Jasmine. So we're going to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. That was November 19th, 2024. May I have a motion that the Special Education Advisory Committee approves the minutes of the November 19th, 2024 meeting? So if we could have someone to move that. It's good. Move that. Seconded. Thank you. And is there any discussion of the minutes? Okay, all in favor? Okay, and so we have approved the minutes of the last meeting. And now we're moving on to delegations. We are very fortunate to have a delegation by Jamie Cuttle. I remember you, Jamie, last year. And
Thank you.
so there is a preamble here. Sorry, I'm going to read this, Jamie, because I'm new. Before we begin, I will remind you that delegations and committee members will ensure that their remarks are respectful and professional during the meeting. Offensive language or negative personal references regarding any individual will be ruled out of order. Each delegation will receive 10 minutes for their remarks. So Jane, you've got 10 minutes. And committee members will have the opportunity to ask clarifying questions following Jamie's delegation. So we have obviously one delegation tonight, and that is Jamie Peddle. So Jamie, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, all right. Oh, okay. Well, good evening. Thank you, everybody. Today, I'm giving the Peel District School Board a grade F today when it comes to children with special needs. There are over 6,000 kids in the special education system here in Peel. Peel is ranked number 2 out of the 72 school boards here in the province of Ontario. But still, the Peel District School Board treats special needs children like third-class citizens. I was here last year. I put in some great submissions, some great ideas to this board. And not even once did the superintendent, Claudine, have the decency to write me back, send me an email or a phone call to let me know anything about my ideas whatsoever, which I thought was very, very unprofessional, no class whatsoever. Anyways, I'm going to tell you a story about my son. We've been through this before, and I'm going to say it again. My son was diagnosed with severe autism. He's severely affected by autism. He's severely affected by intellectual disability. When Jacob was brought into the school board here at Jefferson Public School at kindergarten, he wasn't allowed to go to school for the very first 2 weeks. He was told by the principal that I was told by the principal, and the exact words were that we have to get the school straightened away so we can bring your son into the classroom. The very first 2 weeks. Jacob was going to Erin Oaks at the time. When there was no Erin Oaks available, I called up the school to see if Jacob could come into class. She said, no, we don't have the resources to work with Jacob. So Jacob was only there for half days. This was from kindergarten to grade 2. Grade 3 to grade 5, he was very, very fortunate and blessed to have wonderful teachers, which Miss Jacket was the principal of Goldcrest. Great teachers, great supports. It was fabulous. The supports were there. Everything was great there. I was so happy. Grade 6, this is when things turned down, huge down. Miss Jacket, myself, the teacher, we went to Williams Parkway Public School. We did our meeting there in May before Jacob started school. We talked about Jacob. They knew about Jacob's needs and everything else, flight risk and all this stuff. They knew all this stuff. I lost my mom in September of that year, when we started grade 6. When we came back in when we came back after the funeral, the school had lost Jacob. They lost him. He ran 1.6 kilometers in 22 minutes. And if it wasn't for the quick response of the EA to call 911 and the quick response of the Peel Regional Police, my son would not be here today. He'd be dead because they found him on Beauvert and McKay. And I don't know if you guys know where McKay is in Beauvert. Let me tell you something. That's not an easy traffic place for someone severely affected with autism. I had a meeting with the principal, and again, it's truly, I don't understand how people are put in these positions. They're paid so wealthy, but yet they're unable to do their jobs and they're not qualified to do it. I had a meeting with the principal. She promised me everything in the world. Oh yeah, we're going to do this and do this. Everything's going to be fine, no problem. Well, grade 7, EAs. No EAs in the classroom. I found out through text messages to the teacher, my son was being instructed to go and sleep in the classroom. I don't know if you guys been to the Williams Parkway Public School there, but they have a special room. It's called an ALE room. It's got mats around it. I don't know if you guys seen what happened in a school board where a boy had died. He had a seizure because of no EAs around to support him. If there was EAs there, that boy would still be alive today due to the neglect of the school board. My son has not learned anything whatsoever from grade 6 to grade 8 now at William Parkway Public School. There's no EA support. They can't handle them. They don't know how to deal with children with autism. Okay, now I'll get to my submissions. There are no speech therapists in the Peel District School Board. None. I found this out through a meeting I had. Okay, over 6,000 kids. There are only 5 or 6 BCBAs that is provided with over 6,000 kids. Very few resources available for OT. EAs are not qualified. This is Canada, folks. This is Canada we live in, right? Where's our taxes, right? How is it children are supposed to have a chance in life to succeed in our life if we are failing our kids? I don't quit on my son, and I don't want you to quit on my son either. I want my son to have a chance in life, and the school board is failing my son and failing the 6,000 kids that's in the school board. They need resources, they need help to succeed in life. And the province of British Columbia, did you know that they allow ABA therapy in their classrooms? Board certified behavior analysis are allowed to be put in classrooms. Not here at Peel District School Board. In the Toronto District School Board, parents pay for board certified behavior analysis to go into the classrooms. If you guys don't want to fund that, well, then at least let the parents be able to fund it and bring in qualified, trained people into the classroom. This is what the Toronto District School Board does. So why don't you guys do that? Why? The status quo approach is not working here. I grew up here when I was a kid. I've lived here for 43 years. Brayton Bramalea, this used to be a great place. But the school system is destroyed here. So what needs to be done is this. We need to allow ABA into our school system. It needs to be regulated. Write this down, please. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Please stop me. Board certified behavior analysis need to be allowed in the school system as long as parents, want to pay for it. If the Toronto District School Board does it, you guys should be doing it as well because you're not funding it. There needs to be more hire of BCBAs, OT, speech to help our children. We need to set higher qualifications for EAs to have trained staff. I had a meeting with Minister Lecce, and I talked to him before he was moved. He said, Jamie, he said, we put that into the ministry. I said, really? He says, yeah, it should be implemented. I said, okay. So I don't know what the hell he's saying. And another thing, this is very important. When children are brought into the school system from the very beginning, if they have autism, if they have Down syndrome, if they have Asperger's, there needs to be a special education classroom for these children so they can have a chance in life to adapt to society. Because it's not fair to them to be in a classroom of 30 kids, and it's not fair for the other 30 kids as well. Because I know myself, if I'm trying to learn, I wouldn't want kids to be banging tables, making noises and everything if I'm trying to learn. That's interfering with my learning. So it's not fair for those kids, but it's also not fair for the other kids. Enough is enough, people. We need people that want to do their jobs seriously, that take their job seriously. And if you cannot take your job seriously, then by all means, step aside. Let someone else in there and do the job properly. That's going to care for our kids. Enough is enough. I don't know anything that goes on with the funding in the school board, but you guys need to start taking your priorities a lot better than what's going on here. And when I sent an email to Miss Jacket and my school board of trustee, when I found out my son was sleeping in a classroom at the end of the year through text messages, guess what? I got no response. I got no response. Just like Mrs. Carrie Andrews, when my son was in Jefferson Public School and I was expressing my concerns about Jacob at Jefferson Public School. She never even responded or helped me either. That's all I gotta say. Thank you. Any questions?
Yep, thank you very much. Now, and just to give you context, Jamie, because I know like when I first was here, it's confusing. Most of the people that are sitting here on the SEAC are community association representatives. So I represent the Learning Disabilities Association of Peel Region. And so the people that make up the committee are like, we're non-PTSB staffers. Like we are representing various charities. And then we do have some PTSB staff resource people here, and we have 3 school board trustees. So that, you know, the majority of people you're looking at here are like, we're external community organization reps that are here to speak to the school board too.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah,
I do have one question. And so am I in the right room here? Like, who do I speak to about this stuff here?
I think you're the right room to start with. Yeah,
I was here last year.
I know. So, and I know so like the first thing, I'm gonna follow this because I'm new but I know like what I initially thought that we were speaking to a group of PTSD staff, but we're community representatives, representing a variety of different, kids with and families that are dealing with different, special education needs. So, but no, this is a place to be heard for sure.
Thank you.
Now, first, we need to have a motion to, by the SEAC to receive Jane's delegation. So if there's somebody who would move to accept that, Jen, and Barb would be seconder. So, motion to accept. We're voting yes. So if we can just have a show of hands to accept Jane's delegation. Thank you. That's been accepted and approved. Now, are there any clarifying questions for Jane about his presentation? Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Chair. So Jamie, you said Jacob's in grade 8 now.
That is correct.
Is
Yeah.
he in special classroom or?
Yeah, Williams Parkway Public School. This is his last year, and then next year is what really scares me about, because he's going into high school. And the way this past 3 years has been going, it's just been on the downhill. Yeah.
So I represent Autism Ontario on this committee. My son joined grade 9 in Block 1 program, one of the additional programs in Bolton this year. Okay, so I may be in a position to maybe provide some advice in addition to that, and also help you find a pathway. That's something we're looking for. I have done that for my son, and I work with several, parents who approach Autism Ontario to work with the school board on their children specifically. And we recently worked with somebody who was in Heart Lake. I'm a rural school that there with. And if that's something that you are looking to do, I'm happy to support you towards Ontario, and I can connect with you there.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm always up for hearing new ideas and stuff like that. But just to give you an idea, let you know who I am a little bit better. I'm the founder of Canadian Autism Treatment for Medicare Coalition. I've lobbied federal and provincial leaders of Medicare coverage for autism. I've been in the news. If you Google my name, you'll see all my stuff that I've done. I've done press conferences in Ottawa, as well as Queen's Park. I met our horrible Premier, Doug Ford. I met all federal leaders, Mr. Jagmeet, Justin Trudeau, Pierre, you name it. I've done so much, it's unbelievable. I've spoken to a lot of people regarding the education system. But if you want to provide me some more information, I would greatly appreciate it, and thank you so much. I'm definitely willing to explore those avenues, but from my understanding, I think I've gotten and taken all those steps, but feel free to send it to me. Thank you so much.
Are there other questions?
I just wanted to, oh, it's not, there we go. I just wanted to make a brief response to Mr. Peddle. I have found a copy of the email that was sent back to you in response to your delegation on November 13th last year, and you responded on the 13th and the 15th to that email. So our Superintendent Scucato did respond, and Associate Director Mr. De Silva here was also CC'd on that email. I also wanted to note in your presentation that you said Miss Jacket did not send you a response to when Jacob was sleeping in the classroom, but that was when he was in middle school and I wasn't the principal of Williams Park. So it wasn't me who didn't respond to you.
No, but you're in charge of the special education but this is when this happened last year. So this would be grade 7, but this wasn't when you were the principal, which is what I said. And which is Williams Park, but you were the principal at Goldcrest. Yeah.
All right, so are there any other questions?
I just wanted to clarify, you said there are no speech and language therapists. I'm looking in the special education document right here, and it says that we have 58 speech and language pathologists. So
Good question.
why is he
Yeah.
having a problem?
Actually, that's a great question, and thank you so much. I just did the parent interview with Williams Parkway Public School with the teacher and the EAs. And I sat in a room with all 3 of them, and they told me there's no speech no speech therapists available. Those are the exact words I was told. I don't know where they are or where they're hiding or what they're doing, but I can tell you something from what I was told. They're not going to Williams Parkway Public School. I can tell you that.
Is there clarification?
No, just for process purposes, I think when a delegation is presented to the committee and or the board, it's incumbent upon the staff to take that back so that a response can be formulated by the staffers.
Yeah,
So
we're
that
getting to
Jamie
them.
can get that.
Yeah, it's in the script.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure, with respect to any more questions. Yeah, clarifying questions.
But that's a great question. Thank you so much.
So we gotta follow up on that.
Yeah, I'm shocked myself. So, yeah, good question. Thank you. I don't know where they are. I have no idea.
So I think that, Jamie, if I can just say that there's a number of committee options. I don't think any of these are the ones you want, except you want a response from staff, correct? With respect to the presentation you made.
Yeah, so what I would like is that, and thank you, Chair, for this. What I would like is that all these ideas that I'm putting forward, I would like a written email with everyone that I presented, and I would like something in writing regarding it, and not just a phone call, because I had to talk to Claudine about this, and then I was the one who made the initiation phone call with her regarding last year, and I was told over the phone by her. Now, you're saying that you sent me an email, I did not get it, but that's it. But yeah, okay. If I can get a written email response and for every every idea that I'm putting forward, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
That's great. So what we're going with is committee option D, which is to request an information report from staff will be presented at a subsequent meeting, and that will be following up with Jamie by email. So that means we have to wrap up with you. Do you feel
Thank you.
like you've been heard? Okay.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this. Thank you for this time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, and I hope something is going to get done. I'll be back here next year. Trust me, I will be back here next year. Jamie Peddle will be back here next year. I guarantee you.
We're gonna put it.
And I will be back the following year after that. So, but thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good evening, folks. Thank you.
Thanks for your
May I ask for be removed?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. So I get thanks. Thank you, Jamie, for your presentation. So we will be following up on this. Staff will provide a report at the next meeting, and we'll be getting back to Jamie directly. Okay, that's great. So we're going to just take a 30-second break if anybody needs to do a stand and stretch to be able to thank Jamie on his way out.
Yeah.
So Ted had just suggested that we take 30 seconds, so I feel like I should sing or something, but I'm not. And but I do think that it's something like first of all, I wasn't expecting that I would be immediately sharing tonight, so here I am. And thank goodness Jasmine wrote this script, or I would be totally at sea. But I think when we received the presentation from Jamie last year, like he's looking to be heard, and I think it was really, really kind of everybody to really listen and ask some good questions. So I appreciate that, because it's important when parents come here that they feel good. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Right. Yeah. So now that Ted is back, we're moving on to the next number 8, which is reports from officials and staff. So 8.1 is the superintendent's report, the oral report that I believe we also have written copies of. There's nothing's ever straightforward. Who's are you giving that to? So I'm going to hand it over to Ted. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yes, I hope everyone has a copy of this oral report, but I'll read it with apologies. Is this usually what happens, that you've got a report and I read it out loud anyway? Okay. So I'll go through this. I would say 3 items in this report, and of course I'll invite any questions afterwards. So good evening, SEAC members. My name is Ted Byers, and I'm the acting superintendent of special education, covering for Superintendent Sciccato. She recovers from surgery. I'm so glad to be back in the special education department, working alongside the most dedicated and caring educators in service of students and families across the Peel District School Board. Thank you for attending the governance training that happened earlier this evening, and thank you, Jasmine, for directing that training. Thank you. I'm hopeful that the insights gained will contribute to improved collaboration within our collective team. I believe the knowledge shared will help SEAC and the special education department to streamline discussions and ensure meetings are more meaningful and productive, ultimately strengthening our collective impact. So at the last SEAC meeting, the psychology department shared the equitable assessment practices within the student review process, so SRP for short, resource. Special education is filled with more acronyms than anywhere else, so SRP. This process maintained the integrity of the ACC, so that is the ACC, help me out again.
Assessment Consultant Committee.
Thank you. Which was new after I was here, so I didn't know that. Thank you. While allowing equitable access to assessments in a dynamic process to ensure a reduction in wait times. That meeting, there were questions about the number of students who are waiting to be assessed and a clarification of the use of the term list when discussing the number of students waiting for assessment. At student review meetings, so at our ends, the equitable assessment practices within the student review process resource supports conversation regarding whether a psychoeducational assessment is essential to provide information beyond what has been gained from classroom evaluation and intervention. The school team at the SRM uses the prioritization matrix to collaboratively determine the priority category of a potential psychoeducational assessment referral. This is based on the benefit for student learning and urgency determined by factors such as the complexity of the referral, duration of the concerns, current performance, intervention history, and readiness of the student and family, including their understanding of potential benefits and outcomes of an assessment. This process supports dynamic decision-making regarding prioritization of assessment referrals as conversations about supporting students occur at SRMs. In other words, the priority of a potential assessment can change from one time to the next, such that students are continually supported with proactive and intervention strategies and are monitored through regular SRM discussions. This also supports a referral process for psychoeducational assessments that are essential for supporting student learning, specifically urgent priority assessments using the prioritization matrix. Furthermore, to increase equitable access to psychoeducational consultants for the completion of the urgent priority assessments, 3 to 4 superintendencies of schools are grouped. Regular meetings within these groups occur to ensure that either the school-based psychoeducational consultant or another psychoeducational consultant is assigned to complete all urgent priority assessments so that no child is left behind. All 1,386 accepted psychoeducational assessment referrals from the previous assessment consultation committee, there it is, ACC, processed from the 22 to 23 school year have been completed over the span of that 2-year range, 22 to 24. Currently, based on the data in the Student Information System, SIS we call it, there are approximately 400 psychoeducational assessments that have been either completed or are in progress since the start of this school year. There are no urgent priority assessments waiting to be assigned. The psychology department continues to be committed to being responsive to the urgent priority assessments needs for the system. Collaboration at SRM with all its members continues to support the implementation of the prioritization matrix and use of the equitable assessment practices within the student review process resource. That's the first of 3 sort of topics in this. I'll finish the report, but again, if there's any questions, then we certainly have staff here to respond as a follow-up. I want to move on to also share with the committee some information about educational assistant allocations, EA allocations. There have been 2 memos issued to principals in the last weeks to indicate that EA allocations to schools have been under review. In the first memo, there was also a message about a pause in the hiring process, which was required while the allocations were under review. The reason for the review of allocations and the memos is that there had been an over allocation to schools as compared to budget. And the budgetary constraints require that all allocations be reviewed in order to align with those budgetary constraints. The review has now been completed. Some adjustments to EA allocations have been made to some affected schools, and the hiring process has been reopened. Revised allocations, just so you know, were communicated last Friday to schools. Educational assistants are a valued and hardworking staff group, and SEAC, perhaps more than others, will know that student moves through the school year through new enrollments or moves require that EA allocations to schools be adjusted periodically. These recent adjustments should allow allocations to be made equitably, and in this case, be made within the fiscal constraints of budget. And thirdly and finally, I do want to report in the spirit of giving at this time of year, I want to share about the Winter Caring Connection, which we used to call Share the Joy. This program was started by a group of social workers volunteering, field board social workers, volunteering their time beyond their role to connect families experiencing financial insecurity with sponsors to help them through the holiday season. This is the 22nd year of the program, which is not affiliated with a particular holiday. It just supports all who are in need at this time of year. This year, in addition to our generous sponsors, the Winter Caring Connection Committee has been recognized with an award from Mazda Mississauga, the Rising Legends Award for Outstanding Contributions to the Community. This award comes with a $2,500 prize, which will go directly to the families that the Winter Caring Connection can support, providing groceries, winter clothing, and gift cards. In 2023, last year, 150 families were connected to the Winter Caring Connection. This year, the addition of this prize money will see so many more students and families supported at this holiday season. So thank you very much. And through your chair, that is my report. And as it says at the end, and I certainly echo, thank you very much for your continued participation as a committee, which is so valued. I'm happy to entertain any questions from that.
Do we do the motion first or do we questions first?
Receive my
Okay, so we'll do first we'll do a motion that the Special Education Advisory Committee receives the superintendent's report. And that's moved by Jeff, seconded by Jen. And all in favor? Okay, so that has been accepted. Thank you, Ted. And is there any discussion? Are there any questions?
I have a question regarding the priority list for psychoeducational assessments. I happened to hear from a parent today whose child is in grade 8 and has been waiting since their child was in grade 5 for a psychoeducational assessment for giftedness. So how long does someone have to stay on a list before they reach the priority list?
Sure, perhaps I'll invite staff to comment on that. I'll just say that these priorities are, as I was saying in my report, are reviewed and sometimes adjusted as the year goes on. But I'll invite staff, whether that's Amelia or Andrew, if you'd like to make further comment in response to that question.
Through you, Chair. In terms of gifted assessments, we're definitely looking to get through all of them. So if regarding a particular student, perhaps it's just ensuring that they come back to the SRM process, just because sometimes they have been missed because of the number of different ways that we have been screening and identifying for gifted. So perhaps if you can just have that family go back to the school, we are looking to complete all of those assessments as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So my understanding here is we only have 400 students in our school system that are in urgent need of psychoeducational assessment. So about 1.5 per school. Is that accurate?
Yes, since the start of the school year, yes, at this point so far in terms of all the conversations that have been occurring at the school and SRM, that's what we currently have. But they will continue to be coming in, I'm sure.
The next question would be, how many non-urgent? What was the rest of the list? I know there's no list. Sorry, but the rest of the people that are waiting, people like Barb was talking about, there are many parents who are waiting. We keep hearing that there's no list or there's no wait, but we hear from parents constantly that there is a wait. So there's a real disconnect here. And saying that when there are 400 students that really need a psychoeducational assessment right now is confusing to me.
So I'm not sure we have the answer to that question right now, but I'll receive that. I think that there's a different, so urgent is the most urgent, clearly from the word. So there are different categorizations of need, and that's what's renegotiated as the year goes on. So 400 urgent, those would be the ones that need to be done as priority. As I was saying earlier, those are seen to as quickly as possible, and we have no urgent at the moment. And I was also saying that the staff are nimble. So typically there's a psychoeducational student assigned to each school. But if that person is unable to do the assessment for something that's urgent, we'll pool and move people around so that that urgent one gets done. But I hear your question, which is about those that are on the list, but not at the urgent level. So we'll come back with that response.
This is the information in the action motion one that we were looking for, like, who are the kids that are waiting? Do we know?
Oh, thank you.
Through your chair, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrea Dewar-Semin, coordinating principal for PSSB. So as we implement the equitable referral assessment process, as Dr. Amelia shared, the high priority as prioritized by schools, using the matrix that was provided to them, we're ensuring that we get the high priority assessments, students that were referred completed. And as Superintendent Byers said, we're ensuring that the process is not leaving kids waiting by using the family of schools approach. If the home-based psychoeducational consultant has already started 3 or 4 assessments, And if there isn't anyone in the family of schools, to go even further geographically to find other psychoeducational consultants. Because the requests or the referrals are not equal, right? So we're ensuring that the high priority gets done as quickly as possible. The students who are brought to SRM and haven't made the high priority in terms of the mixtures that we're using continue to get the support they need through the school, through consultations, interventions, and strategies that are given. And because the process is dynamic and not static, if those interventions at the tier 1, tier 2 supports that are implemented are not yielding the growth and the changes, then that student can change in terms of the priority to get assessments done as well. I hope that helps.
So just a question that, thank you, that it's helpful. I still think we should know how many people are in that bucket. And I guess my question would be, how long do they have to go back and try these strategies before they will pop up on the higher priority?
Through you, Chair, because this is, I don't think we can necessarily say that there's a certain period of time that we need to be trying these things, but it's through those conversations because there are multiple members, including family, that are at that table having those conversations about how long something has been tried. And we also have multiple PSSP members, including our speech and language and social work folks, as well as special education resource teachers. So to say there's a certain time period would not capture how we have many different student portraits and needs that are discussed. And so that's where every member at the SRM is accountable to be having those critical conversations about what the student needs are and what the student portrait is.
Hey, go ahead.
Just one follow-up and that's done. Do we have data though on these students that are in this process? Like how many are working at different levels?
Through you, Chair, and thank you, Board, for that. That's something that we're definitely, because this is a new process that we're starting we're starting up this year. That's definitely something I think we should be looking at the data and getting that information so that we can ensure that we're continually revising this process to best support the students.
Through you, Chair.
Sorry. Okay.
I get far from the microphone. Through you, Chair. Also, keep in mind that the SRM process at the school level happens quite frequently, and so the students continue to get the support that they need and continue to be discussed through a live process. So it's not just a referral for an assessment, and you're not getting. Let's say the student wasn't prioritized and then the student is forgotten about. The student continues to get classroom supports or any other supports that was determined to meet their need. So it's not just avenue to an assessment that dictates the total way in which students are supported. So as they are being discussed and monitored for their growth or for needs or more information that's required. There are other supports that are in place that looks very different at different schools and for different students. So not limited to, but includes consultation with the classroom teachers, strategies being given by PSSP, strategies that the ISSP teacher should be involved in, other resource teachers that are assigned to schools so that the students are not left unsupported as the determination towards if a psychoeducational assessment is needed is determined.
Other question? Other question? I think that I would like to ask, in the actions that we did do a motion, I believe through trustee Alvis, last time around just looking at the number of students are still like waiting but non-urgent. I guess it sounds like it's going to take some time to get that data because of the new system. Is that right?
Through you, Chair, yes, I would appreciate some time to kind of start rolling out that process. It just started as when we presented it to SEAC, and so it'd be great if we can have some time to get that data back.
For sure, because I think we had that lively conversations list. So like there's a list in the matrix and there's things come on. All right. So are there any other questions? Okay, then go ahead.
Questions about other stuff on.
Pardon me?
Just a question about others things in the report.
Sure.
Specifically the EA allocation.
Go
So
back to.
just so I can understand clearly what happened here, we were actually over provisioning schools in some cases, and now we've pulled back some of those EAs, and now we've reopened the hiring process. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. So just to clarify, the budget process for the board happens in the spring. And last year, the special education department, through obviously Claudine, the superintendent, brought a business case to increase EA staff, which trustees are nodding. So at that point, 125 permanent EAs were added to the staff group. Later in the summer, there was an additional allocation of LTO, so long-term occasional casual staff, and that number was 98. So those two numbers together, 125 and 98, or 223 additional educational assistants as compared to last school year. So that's for sure an increase, and I know I see it back. There's some members of that staff group, and I certainly use every opportunity to indicate that they are highly valued members and highly valued staff members, providing, as this committee knows, tremendous service to students and families. So that's a great staff increase. But to your point, there was an over allocation beyond that number, which had to be corrected because there are obviously budget constraints that limit. It's not an infinite, sadly, resource that we can allocate. So there has had in the last 2 weeks to be some correction around that. Luckily, that has not been, in terms of a scope, a significantly large correction. But to be honest, every correction is challenging to get through. And the hiring process had to be frozen because as we were due and move, but that has been since reopened to make sure that if there were hiring processes in progress, that those could continue. So I hope that helps verify. Yeah.
Do we have a number of how many we've decreased?
Then the number is still somewhat in flux as we tweak the evaluations, but I think it's I'm going to say in the neighborhood of about 20. This committee knows, and I think there's been budget presentations to this committee about how budgets are provided to school boards and what monies are enveloped and how that comes, et cetera, et cetera. This committee will probably know that our spending as a school board in the special education category goes beyond the allocation provided to the board by the Ministry of Education. And we're pleased to do so because we know that overage is supporting student success and student families. But we certainly, as a board, I should say we, as the Peel District School Board, certainly it uses hopefully whatever mechanisms we have at, I think, the board level to raise voice to the ministry to indicate that there needs to be increases in funding. And I see trustee nodding. So you're welcome to make comments if you wish to add to the points I'm making, but certainly that would be a feeling that we would have as a board, that there needs to be greater funding, and it's a challenge for us to operate within financial budgetary constraints when what we really want to do is provide greater support to students in schools. Associate Director, so glad you want to add anything that I've just
Sorry, I
commented
can
on.
jump in and through you, Chair. I just want to also give my nod to the trustees because, and it was this committee, I don't know if you remember April or May, that we pleaded for advocacy from this committee to reach out to the Board of Trustees. And since then, I believe 2 letters have been sent to the ministry pleading for some additional funding and touted as fix the formula 2.0 for Peel. And as you can imagine, although the ministry is sharing that their funding is increasing, if you look at the scope of the number of students we are receiving here in Peel and the rate of inflation on the dollar, the funding is actually decreasing in a significant magnitude, to be honest. And so any advocacy, continued advocacy that we can share. You heard Jamie next to me plead for more advocacy around my friends in the back, educational assistance and so on. And I think that conversation needs to continue. It cannot be left alone as we continue to see increases of student families with students with complex needs enter the Peel region from all over and across the world. And as I shared last year, public housing and our shelters are at overcapacity by about 450% here in Peel. So we have, and it's not just those students, but in conjunction with everything else, I think there is a dire need for continued advocacy from this great committee, from our trustees and so on. And I do thank them for the additional EAs that they have continuously provided over the years. And you heard the number today at 223, which potentially could, if you had your brothers, 423 as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, that's all I wanted to highlight.
Thank you. Are there other questions on any of number 2 or 3?
Yes, comment.
Yes,
See,
go ahead.
I think the severe needs and the complex needs where a lot of the parents anguish come through. Because even though there are, of course, ASD classrooms, ASD classrooms, and the rock ones and whatever, not most of them don't really fit the child with a very complex need. And that's where I recently worked with someone who went to Arts Ontario and then was referred to us, and I went to Claudine, and she organized a consultation with the parents again. And that seemed to have helped to understand that what the school board can offer. Now, probably like Apple Home or Applewood, the school here, right? Probably we are getting to a stage where we probably need to have a setup like that, where a lot of the kids with more complex needs can be housed rather than spreading them all over schools, because creating such infrastructure across is going to be incredibly challenging. That's just a comment I wanted to make.
Thank you. Any further questions on the oral report? Since we've already did the motion. Oh,
One more.
okay.
In the action motion log, it said that we were going to get a response regarding the purchasing department ensuring that all vendors meet the ODA standards. Said the response would be provided and delivered by acting or superintendent. Did you get any information on that?
I'm ready to deliver that, but I don't think we're there.
It's not there. Okay, I thought it was on.
I guess I have to go into the.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Thought it was before.
Just wait 4 minutes up here. Ted's going to keep us on the line here. Thank you very much. So we've already approved the and accepted the students superintendent's report. So if there are no further questions, then we're moving on to 8.2, which is the special education plan review, standards 5 and 6. When we have slides.
So thank you, and through your chair, I'd like to welcome Doug Bertrand, coordinating principal in special education department, to present this report.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So this is our monthly report for standards 5 and 6, and I appreciate the fact that folks wanted 5 in advance so they could have a chance to review it and provide feedback. Just a reminder that we are asking for feedback to be added through the link on the spec ed plan so that we can consolidate it in one place. We have asked the research department to provide us with a monthly poll of all the feedback so that we can, in a timely manner, collect, respond, and make updates. And so I'll get to that a little bit more in the next couple of slides, but just that is our ask once again. Next slide, please. And this, again, we're just linking to the standards as they were written last year, and then we'll be taking the feedback as we update or make any changes to them. Next slide, please. So for standard 5, we were in the process of editing and revising the parent guide to IPRC because it needed to be updated. And we've also taken a look at some of our other parent guides or where we lack parent guides, along with the special education plan that we shared last year. And so we're looking at a plan to potentially create a guide to special education for families that would amalgamate a bunch of that information, not necessarily removing it from the spec ed plan, but just providing a shorter, easier to navigate document with some of those. So as we collect the feedback on the parent guide to IPRC, we'll be looking to incorporate that in both areas. Next slide, please. So just some questions that we really, and we shared these again last month, would like folks to consider as they review the standards, but in particular, parent guides. Really around is the language used accessible for parents and families. Is the information clearly presented? We want to avoid the use of acronyms and jargons where possible unless they're defined. So we're really looking for that as you provide feedback. If there's stuff that we've written that is unclear or requires folks to jump around in the document, please let us know because we don't want to make it more difficult to find information in that large document. Next slide, please. Okay, so standard 6, which is assessments. We're not looking at planned changes at this time, but we are looking at the feedback provided from the community to see what changes are being requested. So again, if there's a section in that standard that is not clear or that needs more information for families, because I know in that particular one, we had some questions around PSSP staff and qualifications and some other things. So that would be what we are looking for to update that one. And as I shared, we have arranged for monthly data pulls from the feedback, and we're looking at potentially sharing our first one next month of what we've received, some of the responses and some of the changes / updates that will be made. Next slide, please. And again, for those of you who are thinking about providing some input in the short term, there's the QR code, there is a bit.ly, but it's also on the spec ed plan page on our public website. So if you type PDSB special education plan into Google, go there. Just above the plan, there is a link for the provision of feedback. So it's anytime folks are visiting our spec ed plan, that link is right there. And next slide, please. So planning ahead, the standards to be reviewed in January were printed and provided at the back of the room for you as you entered. If you didn't pick them up, let me know and I will bring one around. We are looking at standards 8 and 9 for next month. 7 and 8. 7 and 8. Sorry, got one ahead of myself there. That's it for me. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. First of all, may I have a motion that the Special Education Advisory Committee receives the Special Education Plan Review Report. Moved by first mover. And then seconder. All right, thanks. And then discussion prior to all in favor. So are there any questions? I love that Jen has questions.
Just go first. So I understand you don't want our feedback right now. You just want us to put it into the form? or do you want to hear and go and have a discussion about it?
Yeah, we did debate that, and we've sort of landed on the form being a place where we can guarantee that we have all of the feedback in one spot so we don't miss something. If there was a particular point of emphasis that you think, we need to hear tonight, then I'm happy to hear that. And my coordinator, Patricia Campbell, is taking notes. But really, we prefer the use of the link so that we can respond. But I'm happy to take a couple of if there are significant points of feedback you'd like to share.
And maybe it's just me and I'll put it out to the group, but the meeting is to discuss this kind of stuff so the public can hear what's going on and so we can kind of bounce off each other and actually improve things versus putting it into a form. You may not get the gist of what we're saying, that kind of thing. So in the past, we've had these discussions either separately in a smaller group or at the meeting. So I think it would be beneficial to have those discussions at this meeting. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way.
Thank you. And through you, Chair. What I didn't mention, and I think I had on the last slide, that was their feedback to refine this process. And so with our superintendent returning in January, then I will take that back, that perhaps in addition to the form being a formal way to collect feedback, that there needs to be a discussion period as well. So I'll take that back to her.
Go ahead.
To the chair, and just wanted to make a comment on, you mentioned that you're trying to get rid of avoid the acronyms. And this is very important. And because as we were going through, the previous discussions, and this is something that we have discussed at our, another committee meeting that we had. And I brought this up saying that parents who are not familiar with the language associated with special needs, and for that matter, I think the PDSB has got a lot of acronyms. And as a first time trustee, I said, I need to make a list of it. And I have it saved somewhere. But I gave up because, every now and then they were coming in. So if I find it so difficult, imagine a parent who has a kid with special needs, you bring in these acronyms. So maybe we could kind of, as you said, try to avoid the acronyms because it becomes very confusing. And or at least at the end of that, whatever report you're doing, presenting, make a list of the new acronyms that have come up so that we can familiarize ourselves with. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
Thank you. And through your chair, as we draft a couple of these revisions, we also have a draft acronym glossary that we're looking to include with them, so that it is at hand within each of the documents, because we do realize and recognize that in our department in particular, there are a lot of acronyms and that they do change. So we are working on that as well.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? I would just like to support Jen's comment on that. I think that it's important to have a discussion within the meeting because we bounce off one another and hear other people's ideas, and that's part of, I think, a very fulsome part of the process that we need to have. If we're all in our individual offices, just filling out a form, we don't get that kind of interactivity that we have. So I would agree with that as well. Any other questions or comments? If there are not, then we sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Some amendments have already been recommended here, and I noticed that some amendments have already been changed in the special education plan, but there's no reference to the amendments in the amendment section. The amendment section is completely blank.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Chair. So we did connect with our ministry regional representative to find out if we could make changes and corrections to the spec ed plan and whether that was a formalized amendment. And so she advised that we can make changes and updates as well as make a formal amendment. So we will have to provide that amendment to the ministry in July. as it's approved by SEAC. But are you looking for an ongoing amendment on the website that tracks the changes? Because that was what we were planning to sort of bring in January with feedback.
Yeah, well, how are parents supposed to know? Like, I printed a plan. So now my plan is outdated and it's not even, 3 months old. And it's already outdated because you've made amendments and there's no reference to the amendments. Like I'm on page 26 here, but I know that this thing here now, it's like page 17.
Okay, I can, thank you. And through your chair, I can take that back as how we can share those changes as we go through the year.
Thank you.
For public viewing.
Any further comments or questions? And it sounds like we do really need to ensure that everyone participates in the online submissions as well. Okay, if that is the case, then we would just say all in favor of accepting the report as presented. Okay. So that report is accepted. Thank you very much for the presentation. So that would be the end of our presentations and reports, and now we're at communications or action or receive. And then there's not. And so there's none. That's why there's nothing in the script. Thank goodness. And so then we're moving on to number 10, chair's request for written questions from committee members. Do we have any? Not that we're aware of. So then we're moving on to 11, which is reports from representatives on councils or associations. Are there any of the representatives here that want to share anything that is going on with the committee? We all good? Moving into the Christmas season and the winter holiday season. Okay, seeing none, then it's questions asked of and by committee members. Oh, there's good face.
Yes, the link in last month's agenda, I think it was, for the dates to the IPRC meetings doesn't work. And I noticed that happens quite often. We ask for something and we're given a link to go to a document, which then asks us for a Peel District School Board email address in order to be access it. So it's useless to us. Can you please stop doing that and just send us the document instead? Please send me the document for the IPRC dates. Thank you.
Is there somebody that can respond to that? Or is that just a general?
I'll just receive the question and I think I understand that. If there's a link into, I think I hear you saying that the link then requires you to log in as a staff member, which you're not. Okay. And you're asking for any, sorry, I wasn't here when that question was made. Is all IPRC dates? Jeff, do you want to respond? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, we do have a list of all of our central and field office IPRCs that was shared by the link, and if the link is not accessible to the public, then I will ask Claudine's assistant to email the document to all of you.
Yeah, I find that quite often we're provided with a link that we can't access. And so just send us the document.
Okay, so then that will be passed on. Are there any other questions? I don't have a general. And nothing. Okay, then we'll be moving, we'd be moving on to committee member motions for consideration. We don't have any motions for consideration this evening, other than those we've already discussed, as far as I know. So then we would be moving on to 14, motion of notices of motions and petitions. Are there any notices of motions? Actually, there's none, but for this evening, and we are finally then onto the motion action log number 15. And look, we're making good time. I was really worried that we were going to be here at 10 o'clock because my new chairship. So we would be, are there any questions or discussions around the motion action?
Through your chair, Vice Chair. The Vice Chair and I is correct that in the motion action log, it indicates that there will be an update, an oral report from me, and I'm ready, if you're comfortable through your chair, for me to provide that answer. The reason why it is printed in the motion action log is it was a longer answer, so I'm happy to provide it in writing, but I'll read it aloud if I can. This question relates to purchasing. So if you've got the motion action log in front of you, I'll read aloud the question. What are the processes and commitments of the purchasing department to ensure that all approved vendors meet the AODA standards? So that's the question. So I'll just read the response. This question was obviously forwarded to the purchasing department. They actually gave quite a lengthy response, which I've edited down for the purpose of distribution tonight. So I'll be happy to share that in writing afterwards. So the answer for purchasing. So the board, there's a couple of parts to this. The board obligations under the procurement section of the AODA are, so this is a quote, shall incorporate accessibility design criteria and features when procuring or acquiring goods, services, or facilities, except where it is not practicable to do so. Secondly, that if the board determines that it is not practicable to incorporate accessibility design criteria and features when procuring or acquiring goods, services, or facilities, it shall provide, upon request, an explanation. So that's the legal framework to indicate our requirements for procurement. In order to meet these obligations, the above considerations must be incorporated into obviously our procurement process. This is done through operating procedures and communication and training of staff. So those two mechanisms, operating procedures. So these, which include purchasing forms, templates, documents, operating procedures, typically the board would do that. There'd be an outline of a process, and often many attachments that staff are required to use, such as, again, purchasing forms, documents, anything that they have to require to fill out in order to do a procurement. So those are all those forms are regularly reviewed to incorporate appropriate AODA wording where necessary. And the second point is about communication and training. So communication and training resources regarding AODA procurement and acquisition are provided to all staff, and they too are regularly reviewed and updated. The purchasing department itself is directly involved in procurements that are valued at $5,000 or more, and follows their operating procedures, obviously, to ensure AODA obligations are met, and often relying on subject matter experts in school board departments to provide specifications and requirements. That's for purchases over $5,000. Procurements under $5,000 are made by board departments and or schools that must follow the purchasing department operating procedures that they outline their operating procedures. So again, that was a bit of a long response. I'm not quite sure how to fit it into the motion action log. Maybe it can be an appendix. There's nothing secret about it, but I have hopefully that answers the question.
Go ahead. Sure. So unfortunately, it doesn't answer the question where it came from. So we had a lengthy discussion last meeting about field trips and things that are brought into the school and how a number of them that we currently use are not accessible to all students. So the question was around how are we making sure that when we take our students on a trip or we bring something into the school, that it is accessible for all students. So that became that it's a purchasing department. They have to do it. Sorry, words are escaping me. And so the question was unfortunately a little vaguely asked of the purchasing department. So I'd like to understand how are we making sure that when we say that this camp or these people, we should be giving them our business. How are we ensuring that they actually meet AODA requirements and that all of our students can participate in the activities that we are bringing into the school or that we are taking our students to?
So I'll take that away. Absolutely, and make sure that we have an answer. So can I just ask for clarification so that we don't get into this? So you've said, make sure, how we're making sure that when we are taking students on a trip or when we are, I think you said bringing things into the school, that it's accessible. So can you give me examples? So I think taking students on a trip to whatever, to this location. Am I right in thinking that your question is what is our process to ensure that that location is fully accessible to all students? Have I got it correctly? What's our process to ensure that that's the case? And can you help me understand when we bring things into the school, what did you mean by
So
that?
if we bring activities in school, say jungle sport or a badminton or a lacrosse or these types of things, how are we ensuring we're working with people that have the same rules and ideals that we do in treating our students equally?
Activities or whatever that are
Crafts, scientists in the school, all of those things, right?
all of those things that they would be accessible activities for all students. Okay.
Because it came about last month that this would be sort of downloaded to teachers. But this really, the teachers don't have the skills to do this, right? They don't have necessarily the skills or the time to vet every place they're going to go. And so if it's on an approved list, it should be approved in this way. And so how's that done?
Sure, and I will take the question away to make sure that we're providing the answers, but there are the operating procedures that I made reference to in that answer I read aloud would certainly be asked, provide things like checklists. So if I'm a teacher at a school arranging a field trip to whatever, some camp, part of that checklist would be to ask those questions. So you're right, a teacher wouldn't necessarily know on his or her own what questions to ask, but we make sure to give them that script so that they're asking the right questions of the facility, to make sure. But that's just my immediate answer to your question, and you've asked more than that, I understand.
It came about because we were reviewing the procedures for field trips.
Right.
And the ask was to get something like that into it, right? And it doesn't exist right now, and it doesn't look like it's going to get into it. So then the question was, what's next, and how do we train teachers then to be those assessors and to ask the right questions and to understand what the right answer is to those questions, or to visit the site or all those types of things. So it's really trying to close a loop around. We've talked about how it should be done, but in practicality, how's it actually done?
Thank you. I received that question. I apologize that the answer that I gave tonight didn't actually answer the question that you asked, but I've got it written down. I think now we'll make sure we move forward. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so through you, Chair, should that question be on the motion action log? Is this separate from?
Good question. I don't see why it wouldn't be. It may be part of the same box as a clarification, because it sounds like the wording on there wasn't actually reflective of the question that was being asked. So, thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments about the motion action log for any of the items? And do you feel like, it would be helpful to have a specific example. Like I know that you had that field trip example. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need to go over it again here.
Sure. Okay, so you have another question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Okay.
So the census data for students with exceptionalities, I did look at the report that's been put at the Equity Accountability Report Card that's highlighting patterns and trends. I think that's really important that gets reviewed here at SEAC. And I think the bits about students, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at this, but the bits about students with special education needs to be pulled out and presented here because it's what we all expect. We are 2 and 3 times more likely to experience absenteeism, poor results in school, EQAO, any test you can imagine. The numbers aren't getting better. They're staying the same or getting worse in most cases. And it's very generic information. It's all students with an IEP. And I think the census can break that down a little more. And I think this is the stuff we need to be looking at and working towards making those numbers better, right? Where we present it
And I see it and we see how bad it is, but what is being done? Like the report doesn't even say sort of in any kind of detail. So what are we doing about it? And I mean, I keep asking this question about EAs, about our how our students are being treated in classroom, how they're being, discriminated against. And I'm not getting any feel for what we're doing to improve. Okay, so I think this report needs to come to SEAC. Everybody needs to see what this data says. And it's not a pretty picture. It's exactly what our guest here was telling us tonight. And it's not just about students with autism. And then we need to understand, I understand there's funding issues, right? But we still owe it to these students. It's law. We have to provide these students with an education and with a safe environment. So what are we doing about it? I think yes, the response was provided that we could go and look at this report. That's not good enough. We need to be discussing this report and we need to be doing something about it.
So would we then, this is on the motion action log, it's the first one that was indicated in November. So would we then reaction that? Is that, or how would we go about having a more fulsome discussion or any discussion on that report that Jen's referring to? Just throw it away.
Through Chair, perhaps could we ask for the report?
Sure.
Because I thought that's what we did. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, and I think we were just directed to it as opposed to having a conversation about it.
It's not even exactly what we're looking for, but it's a start. It tells us that
it's information.
It's information. It would be nice if it was broken down a little bit more for people at the table to understand what's happening with different groups and that kind of thing. And understand certain groups we can't because the data is too small, but there are other groups that we can look at it in a little more detail. So that's something we've been asking for quite a while. I know it says November here, but it has been something that's been on our agenda to understand, what are you using for data to make the decisions at the table?
I think, through the chair, I think it probably should be recorded as maybe a separate item on the motion action log or as a follow-up or something to that. So we will do that.
Is that okay with you? Yeah. So we're coming back to that, but we're actually asking to view it and have a discussion about it at an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, and I think it just doesn't get closed. Like this is not this response doesn't close this item. It's to be.
Other questions? I can see she's got it. Does anybody else want to turn before we go back to you? Okay, go ahead. This is what we're supposed to be doing here. So
yeah.
Just put on your mic.
I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer this one. I apologize in advance, but the results of the ADHD writing team. So we were told several months ago that it was actually done and going to be presented to teachers, and there was training scheduled. And now I see here will be presented when it's complete. So I know Claudine said last month that there was a bit of communication or confusion, but they spent all summer doing this writing, and now it will be presented complete with no date. So I'm a little confused with that. I'd like a little bit more information, and I'm not sure if you have that.
Don't have more information. Okay, see me taking notes here. So I'll just take that away.
Through the chair, I have a little bit of information there. It's training that is coming out. The first training is actually starting tomorrow. An all-day training that teachers can sign up for, and there will be subsequent dates as well in January, February, March, and April. Recognizing that this is tomorrow when we're rolling it out, we definitely have content for the training, and it's around ADHD and supporting students with ADHD. But we'll continue. We're looking for feedback from the participants so that we can continue to refine that professional learning that we're providing.
Was that open to all teachers, this training starting tomorrow? Was there sent out to teachers?
It was sent out in, I think, with the PD, POPD.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. Great.
Who's providing this ADHD training? Because we know from the past, the people that wrote the guide that was on the website previously on this, for this board, did not know anything about kids with ADHD. So what do these people know now that are providing the training?
So we have multiple members that created this PL through the summer writing and team, as well as so the psychology department is a crucial part of creating it. And also we have a number of resource teachers, both special education resource teachers, social emotional learning resource teachers, and our special programs resource teachers as well, all working together collaboratively to develop this professional learning.
But are any of them specialists in what is needed by students who have ADHD?
The psychology department has a number of people who are, including myself. So I'm a key member of that development of that professional learning.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a flyer or something that goes out to teachers that we'd be able to see?
For sure.
Oh, look. There's a flyer. Yay. If we could get that.
Confirming everyone what they're saying.
So, thank you. That was very handy. Just so we have a sense of, because I know we asked that about that before, right around the agenda. So that would be great to be able to see that. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
I see again, we're being the EA absentee rate and unfilled days is being postponed again until February. I just like it to be recorded in the minutes that this is ridiculous. This to me should be something that is on everybody's desk, and we should be understanding where we're at, what we're doing to change it, and how it's changing it. To wait 4 months to be able to get information about this is ridiculous, and it's the fact that the people in the room that are talking to us don't know this or understand this or can talk to us about it is really disappointing, because we talked about this in September and in October and how it's so important. And all of our families, I can look around the table, and the biggest thing is EA absences, right? They're not in schools. Kids are being sent home. They're not being treated with dignity. We talked about this last year when you were here, Paul, I believe. And now no one can tell us what those numbers are, how we're filling them, what we're doing to change it. So I'd like on record to say, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing to change this? Where are the numbers, and why don't we understand it better?
Through you, Chair. So I understand your question. One struggle with that is going to be, refer back to the training that was provided by Jasmine at the beginning of the meeting around governance and operations. So some of those questions that you were asking, for sure, are governance type questions. For example, it's reasonable to ask what are we doing, and not just particularly with this particular staff group, but with all staff groups to promote attendance, etc. Whether the part of the answer would be around recruitment and retention, all of that. But I'm not sure whether reporting with specific fill rate percentages would be part of governance. I think that's probably an operational concern. So I'm not sure that you should anticipate getting the answer to that question. But I think the other questions are probably your more important questions. And those indeed are things that can be addressed here at SEAC. So again, I'm not going to have the answer to that question obviously tonight, but that's my immediate response, and happy to take that away. That's obviously been recorded in the minutes, and I'm recorded too. Yeah.
So even if it's not specific numbers, and we did hear that we both operational and governance are part of this committee's area, right?
Yeah.
But I'd like to understand if it was here and now we're here, or if it was here and now we're here, right? We don't even have that kind of information. So at a very minimum, I'd like to see the trends and whether we're improving.
And it does appear that that was discussed and it's supposed to be provided by January. Is that the?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another one coming in January. Just to flip back to the, so to be announced. With the results of the ADHD writing team, I guess a question I would have around following up on what Jen had asked, will be presented when complete. Do we have any kind of time space continuum estimate on that? That in terms of, because will be presented when complete could be any time. So is there a particular date? I don't want to put date on.
I'm not sure, through your chair, but thank you to staff for providing the information that's provided here. I see no reason why an update on progress can't be provided, and maybe that could be requested for next meeting, even if it's not a full report. I think the committee is certainly seeking some information about what the writing team developed, what's the plan for professional learning for staff, and you've got a bit of that this evening, so let's seek more further comprehensive information to be shared.
Great, so that would be indicated for the January meeting as well. Is that right?
Yes, I won't be here, so it's easy.
No, everything's in January.
It's a bit challenging for me because I can't make promises around when I'm going to be here, but all these questions, and there's a lot of them this evening, which is great. So it may not all be able to be included on a January agenda, but we hear that you're seeking more information. Be happy to provide that for sure.
Any other questions on the motion? That was a very actiony motion action though, which is very, very great. Yeah, there you go. Lots of that. So if there's no further questions, then we move to what we were told is the most fun and most enjoyed motion, which is the motion of adjournment. So if we are complete, then if somebody would move that we adjourn. Jeff, and then seconded by Jen, and that we would be adjourning the meeting at, I believe that says 8:39 p.m. So all in favor? And thank you very much. So moved. Thank you for being very kind to me in my first time.